the Minister of Education says that schools that were not high performing will have to be closed down. And he was talking about, it looks like schools that were just not meeting the threshold. He got a number of reactions. We'll speak to Kofi Asare. Kofi Asare is the Executive Director for Africa Education Watch, because these comments have had some reactions from the unions as well. So let's speak to the educationists, and then we'll come back. We'll have some discussion on it. Go to Kofi Asare about the Minister of Education's comments on schools that are not performing and how they are likely to be closed down if they remain so.
The performance of a school like La Presec and then Legon Presec, you cannot put them on the same pedestal and measure them accordingly, and then purport that one of them is not performing well, so you close down the school. You find teachers sitting under a tree, and that is their self-command room. The head teacher's office is like an end coop, excuse me to say, where you find the students also in an uncompleted structure as classrooms. In spite of this, they are performing. He has no power to close down schools. How can which you have power to close down schools? Even we have schools under trees, they are still managing. Teachers are there teaching. Teachers have dedicated themselves to go to villages where officers will not even go there to inspect those schools, but those schools are running. They go around to beg parents to allow their children to come to school. Those schools are even still there. He should go and close down those schools first.
They set aside the GES Council. You have set aside the Director General. You have set aside the regional directors, and you have descended on the heads, and you are holding them accountable that they should come. They said that if they don't change the trend, you close down the schools. That is totally misplaced. That is not where that particular statement should go. Must go. Capitation grant is in arrears for 2 years. Subvention for the past 3 years have not gone. Over 3 years it has not gone. The same schools you are talking about, those who go there, and like I have said, they are aggregated 30, 31, 32. With all due respect to those students, you go and put them together in one place, and you say the head should do what? Magic. What do you do? Please, we think that the minister sometimes should consult.
Basintale, what do you make of this? I'm sure you've been monitoring the comments of the minister, the reaction so far.
It's very unfortunate. And Roland, I feel that we must exercise some level of diligence in matters with regards to education. Because what the output of every educational institution is relative to the inputs. And so just because talk appears to be one of the cheapest commodities on the market, one feels that at every point in time when you meet people, you just tell them what you want to tell them. What have you done in the educational sector to merit the sort of output that you desire in the educational institutions? That is the fundamental question. You have a sector, okay, under our era, there were so many policies that were incorporated, and the basic criteria to achieving output, good results in all these educational institutions is relative to your investments in this particular fraternity. I remember during the era of the NDC's, President Mohammed's administration, we had what we call the TTEL, okay? Over 19 million euros was invested in what we call the transforming teacher education and learning. That had to do entirely with the capacity building of teachers within the educational institutions. The point is that you have invested so little in our educational institution and in the educational sector, and then you expect these teachers to conduct magic. As we speak today, are you aware that with regards to capitation grants alone, in 2012, the headmasters were demanding about 45 million of capitation grants to help them run these particular institutions? The government could only provide 15 million to these institutions. In 2023, headmasters have asked that the government should provide them with 60 million capitation grants in order to run the educational institutions. You know how much the government has proposed to provide for them? 11 million out of 60 million. So how do you expect a headmaster to conjure or to use 11 million in solving a challenge that he had identified to a tune of over 60 million in this particular facility. The second point, as we speak today,
the minister says,
are you aware that what we call recurrent expenditure has not been sent to any educational institution in this country? Imagine, Roland, there are pictures that are going to be shown. That is the vice president's backyard. Imagine the educational minister talking to a teacher in an institution, this particular institution. I plead with a producer to show us. We call it Bio MA Primary. If they could show that on our screen for us. You go and appear before a headmaster of this particular institution, and you tell that headmaster to perform magic. You tell that headmaster to ask his students excel in ICT, when even a common chair for these particular students to sit on has not been provided to them by the education ministry. You go and tell the headmaster in this particular institution, yes, this particular institution, that's Bio MA Primary in Waliwale, the vice president's backyard. You go and tell the headmaster in this particular institution to let the students excel in mathematics when a single textbook has not been provided to them. Are you aware that the government has failed in providing textbooks to all these institutions? Yeah, but
it's a gradual process.
So you must take steps to solve it. Under the NDC's regime, we achieved the universal textbook student ratio in this country. Are you aware that before we assumed office, okay, in 2009, we had 3 students to 1 textbook, and we were lacking behind. Before the NDC left office, over 12.7 million textbooks had been distributed to students, and as a result, we had a 4 textbooks to 1 people ratio in this country. That was how we attained that. There were so many other facilities. We had the SEP incorporated to set up new facilities in our educational institutions and equip all laboratories that had to do, especially with science and technology in this country. We also distributed free uniforms. And you see, President Mahama didn't wake up one day and feel that, look, he had to provide uniforms to all these students. It was because you need to create a conducive environment for all these people to study. And that is how you achieve results in these facilities. But you don't sit down. You have not provided textbooks to all these institutions. You have not provided capitation grants to all these institutions. You have not provided recurrent expenditure to all these institutions. And you expect heads of these institutions to conjure magic. And then you have the tenacity to stand before them and say that all non-performing facilities are going to be closed down. Look at how students are studying under trees. The government hasn't thought of investing money in building classroom blocks for all these students. Look at how students are sweating. Look at how students are wearing tattered clothes and they're studying. So you want a child in this particular institution, you want a headmaster in this particular institution to ensure that students in these facilities pass in maths, pass in science, pass in English. How are they going to conjure that magic? And so if you want very good results and very good output from all these facilities, then you must be willing as a ministry to invest so much in all these facilities, ensure that their textbooks are provided, ensure that teachers achieve capacity building programs.
And right? Then when you go around to, there are schools that have been built. The argument is more need to be built. I think that is the thrust of the argument. We'll show you some of the. Oliver has some of the pictures.
The point where the schools that have been built, and the point is that the comments you have made is relative to all schools and all the teachers that were present.
So you're talking about the universality.
Absolutely, and so you must invest a lot in our educational sector before you can make such a comment. If there's any educational institution that is to be closed down under this particular comment, then it should be the education ministry. His whole ministry must be closed down before the first non-performing school is closed down, because the education ministry appears to be the most non-performing ministry in all the ministries in this country, because you have failed in meeting the basic and fundamental needs of our educational facilities in this country. Yet you have the tenacity to tell them that they need to provide in the educational sector. I find it very, very, very disappointing.
Roland, the best thing a nation can have to develop its country is the human capital. And for the matter, the children that we have. I was fortunate to attend a public school. It's called Chudase Primary School. When you come to One, I went to class 1 in 1972. I continued to Chudase Middle School in 1979. So going back, the demands of governments continue to increase. So therefore, it is important that we take the issues case by case. The way you spoke to the union leaders, I would have loved that the statement that the minister made, you will have called either the minister or the PR of the ministry to explain the reasons why he made those things. But for you to
just allow the unions to come and attack the Minister for Education, for Basintale to attack the Minister for Education. Respectfully, I think that it has not been fair to the Minister for Education and his ministry in particular. Now, going forward, this was a meeting that he held with heads of Conference of Assisted Senior High Schools and the principals of the TVET schools, where they want to look at the state of education. They want to look at the challenges of education and the way forward that he wants, how they can drive education in this country. And for that matter, for him to make that, I want to believe that he wanted to put some sort of, I don't know the word to use, some sort of energy drive in these heads of these schools.
Discipline.
To make sure, absolutely, but not entirely trying to close down the schools, because
do you think that it's the watchers who have misconstrued his?
I believe so, because you have done some interviews with him. I was watching you on TV3 a couple of weeks ago, where he walked you through, since the Nado's government, under Matupoku Prempe and himself, the kind of things that we have done.
Oliver has some of
those. You understand? So let us not paint the picture as if since Nana Adodankwa Akufo-Addo came, we have done virtually nothing.
Indeed, there are model schools.
A lot of things that we have done, and there is still room for improvement. There's a lot of things that we could do. You can't just get up and close a school, with all due respect. First of all, you can look at the infrastructure. I feel ashamed what I just saw on the screen. There is a school in the central town, in my hall. I have a daughter. Anytime I see a social event that need to be tackled, like school, like hospital, I note it down.
You jot it down.
I have it right under the table. I just note it. I've forgotten the school, a couple of them in central town, then part of the north. I note all these things down. So what I'm trying to say is that you can't just get up and say that you're going to go to close a school. First of all, you look at the infrastructure. Two, you look at the teacher availability. As we speak now, Boku, we all know the crisis in Boku. No teacher wants to go to Boku and go and teach because of the conflict that is there. And it's going to affect teaching and learning. It's going to affect the quality of the children that we produce at the end of the day. You understand? You look at supervision. In the primary school, in Chudase Primary, you'll be in the class, that's it. All of a sudden, you see a circuit supervisor. He just walk in and go and sit at the back. Just observing the way the teacher is impacting into our lives. They take notes. And when they finish, they invite the teacher into the head teacher's office and walk him through what they expected to do. So a lot of supervision need to be done. Then materials. I was fortunate to be in a meeting with the education minister. You'll be shocked that Volta region, the recent retired director of Volta region, textbooks that were distributed to all the country, she decided to keep these textbooks in their store without distributing it to the district that will go down to the children in the schools. So I asked the minister, what did you do to the person? He said, unfortunately, the person has retired. So deliberately, there can be people who are sitting in these offices virtually sabotaging government, not to allow government to deliver. But what I want to say is that let us not take the minister out of context. I want to say that he wants to see how he can put some sort of drive, some adrenaline in the teachers. And one of the union executives said that if you post a student of about 30, aggregate 35, 36, 37 into a school, and you don't expect the best out of them, there's a lot that can be done about it. So for me, all I want to say is that the minister doesn't mean any harm. He wants to appeal, drive his head teachers to make sure that they can get the best out of their students. The materials, of course, sometimes some can short. We're in this country. What do we do here? When somebody went to what do you call it? Donate the former Miss Hatter's wife, may he so rest in peace. What did he do here? So once a while, shortages of materials do happen. But let us not paint the picture as if under Akufo-Addo's government nothing has been done at all.
That's why I said that the teachers can buy the chalk themselves.
Absolutely, so there's a lot of things that could be done, and the demands of people in this country continue to grow. So it's about budget and funding availability that we need to support all these things.
And
so
it's not as if the ministry also hasn't done
absolutely.
A lot of work.
I want to conclude by saying that at least you will have been fair to allow the PRO of the ministry or Ghana Education Service at least to speak to the issue than to paint the one-sided thing. It's not the best.
Let's speak to Kofi Asare. He's with Africa Education Watch. He's the executive director for that think tank. They do a number of research, publications, and also great insight consulting. Also,
he's a good guy.
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy.
You do agree. So he's objective, according to Titus Glover, and then the rest of the team here. So we'll take his views. Mr. Kofi Asare.
Hello.
Okay. I'm thinking that we misconstrued the pronouncement of the Minister of Education. Is that it?
Yeah, good morning, and morning to your cherished viewers and panelists. I appreciate the concern the minister raised within the context of education accountability for learning outcomes. Government, after investing billions in the free senior high school program, will obviously be interested in ensuring that, in addition to the numbers, the quality of learning outcomes improve. And head teachers being at the center of managing teaching and learning in senior high schools will obviously have a responsibility to ensure that their learning outcomes, in their schools, improve, consistent with their KPIs. And so admonishing saying to work towards improving the learning outcomes is regular, and it's actually consistent with best practices. The challenge, however, is the threat, for want of a better word, that some schools may be closed because they are not reaching their KPIs, or they are getting 0 to 10% WASSCE pass rates. That for me is a concern, because the reality is that in these schools that are low, very, very low category schools, if you go there, you go to a school like Gomwa Mozano School of Music, candidates who choose that school or end up in that school are candidates who are getting between 30 and 52. Majority of them.
Somebody called me. He said he had
so
I should get in a school.
there's time to which the headmaster in that school can produce above 10% WASSCE pass rate. It's very limited because they don't get the best students. And many of those schools, as we speak, are currently undersubscribed. We have over 20,000 vacancies now, more than the number of vacancies we needed to absorb all the students who qualify for placement. And in these schools, no one wants to go. So for those schools, if you tell them that if they don't generate between 0 to 10% WASSCE pass, you may shut them down. You need to take a second look at the raw materials at your disposal. Are they 30 to 51, 52? What can happen, especially within an environment where administrative grants for running the schools keep delaying. And I'm worried because it's becoming a culture. Until Charles issues a release and fight, administrative grants for running schools will not appear. Last year, it was in arrears for almost the whole academic year. Then Charles issued a statement from Eastern Region. Then they started making noise. There are secondary school headmasters who are using their money, they borrow money on their own to run examination, and all that. So if funds for running schools are not being disbursed at the right time, and the quality of students most of these schools receive is very, very low, between 30 and 52, it will not be fair to demand that level of result from headmasters in these low category schools. And that is where I beg to differ with the education minister's approach. I believe that in as much as government is concerned about quality improvement in the result of senior high school candidates, so that we don't just produce 450,000 senior high school graduates every year, but then we are able, or more every year, but we are able to ensure that at least 50 to 60% of them enter tertiary.
Okay.
What we should first do is to strengthen the quality of the raw materials. If we improve learning outcomes at the basic level, I'm sure schools like Uma Muzano will not be struggling with students who are 52. They will be struggling with students who are 25 or 30, who something reasonable can be done to improve their learning outcomes within a 2.5-year period that is spent in senior.
All right. So my last question then, before I let you go, is it cannot be all gloomy, right? We can't say that nothing has been done over the last 7 years. What are the positives? What are the positives? And then how can we learn from how we've implemented to achieve them to look at where we have to go and then improve?
I think after year 7, we shouldn't even be discussing whether it's been gloomy or there are positives, because I mean it's obvious. No one should be telling and repeating the story of how we managed to get about 1.3 million children into senior high school. It didn't happen overnight, and so there's no Ghanaian in this country who is not aware that we've been able to increase enrollment from about 900,000 to 1.3 million, and we've been able to ensure that the transition rate between junior high school and senior high school is almost at 90%. It used to be somewhere around 60%. So the gains in access is nothing to be discussed. I mean, it is not an issue to be discussed. It's too much trite knowledge that it is not worth discussing anymore. It is common knowledge. I think that we've also made significant gains, not only in expanding access, but ensuring that people who ordinarily wouldn't have been able to afford the cost secondary school are now in school. The issue for me is the inclusion of STEM in the senior high school system and the establishment of STEM senior high schools in our, if you go to Awaso in the western region, you go to Abomosu in eastern region, you go to Bosomtre Girls and all, about 7 STEM senior high schools that are now, 5 of them are now operational ability students. It is great that we have been able to have that specialist approach to STEM education within the short period. It is my expectation that in the next 3, 4, 5 years, one needn't go to Abomosu or Awaso or Bosomtre to attend a STEM senior high school. That's or Accra High, which is now a STEM school, to attend a STEM senior high school. But then we make it very, very inclusive so that in every senior high school, there is a reasonable component of STEM facilities to train everyone who wants to do STEM in any senior high school. But that's a good start, and we must appreciate that we have made gains in spite of the challenges. You are fair. Somebody just told me in the studio, Basintali says that you are an objective think tank.
No,
Kofi Asare, you didn't say that.
You can address challenges.
Kofi Asare is Executive Director, Africa Education Watch. I wish you the best of the day, Kofi.
Thank you very much, Roland.
Okay. Roland, so Kofi kept saying, my difficulty was that he kept saying
we're wrapping up.
He said we've increased access, we have done this. We meant who? The government.
As Ghana.
He said we have increased.
Access has increased.
My problem with his delivery has to do with the fact that we are not discussing access to education now. We are discussing quality. The education minister did not say they should go back and ensure that people are enrolled into their institutions. With that has to do with the free system. If you make education free, everybody will become on board. But he said they should go and deliver, they should perform. That has to do with quality. But all his delivery centered around access. And then we had enrolled this number of people in Awaso. No, we are speaking about quality. And so you should start telling us policies that you have implemented to ensure quality. I told you that we did TTEL. I told you we did SEP. I told you we did GRAP. You know what GRAP was? That was the Ghana Reading program. Over 156 million was invested in that. That gave us good quality and gave us good output. We had TTEL. I told you that capacity building for teachers was ensured. That gave us good output because teachers were equipped, students were also equipped. And so at the end of the day, you get good and quality results. But you don't sit down. You have invested nothing in that sector, and then you come and tell the people to go and deliver. I've already told you. You cannot say they haven't invested nothing. You listen to the sector heads. Yeah. They've told you that capitation grants has been in arrears. They've told you that recurrent expenditure has been in arrears. They've told you that textbooks have not been provided. So you expect them to buy daily guide and go and teach their children when you've not provided extra textbooks to them. They should wake up, buy daily guide, go and use it to teach them. I've sent to senior high schools where people sit under trees. So you see, the education minister is fan of visiting high quality schools. All pictures, most of his pictures I've seen, he visits very luxurious air conditioned schools. And so he's not abreast with the conditions of Blue in Wali Wali. He's not abreast with the conditions of Ambaria in senior high school in Tamale. He's not abreast with issues of a school in Boko. He's not abreast with issues of school in Upper West. So he does not understand the plights all these people have to go to school. Just because he wakes up and he visits an air-conditioned school, he thinks they are performing. Please, the education ministry should be the first to be closed for non-performance before any other school is closed down in this country. Other than that,
well, the last time you said
sure.
Suprisec. As far as I know, Suprisec is not under conditions.
No, but if you go to if I've just given you examples of Blue, I've given you Ambaria Senior High School and all these schools. And so look,
you've had your portion.
Concluding.
You have concluded already. You have concluded. It's okay. It's okay.
On my
time.
Your is plenty.
On the contrary, he's not happy our brother spoke so well when you try to ask him so far what has...
That it cannot be all negative.
Absolutely.
That's the question.
And that is the behavior of NDC, typical NDC. Because they don't want you to hear something good being by Akufo-Addo's government. It is a fact that when you talk about free SHS, infrastructure-wise, a lot has been done. Access to these schools. This is a political party led by John Mama that was saying that Akufo-Addo's policy of free SHS is a hoax. They paid people. They paid you. What did you start?
When we started,
don't even go there. Keep quiet.
SHS,
please, you spend money and give to people, advertise the free SHS is a hoax that Akufo-Addo was bringing. Today, your children are the major beneficiaries of free SHS in this country. In this country. So please, let us be very mindful when we are talking about education. After all, when you compare Akufo-Addo's students, graduates, to John Mama's graduates, you look at the statistics. Which of them has done better?
Oh.
Which of them has done better? When you look at the statistics, from maths to science,
check it.
We are far below his performance.
You are below our performance.
You are far below our performance. So clearly, I want to say that so long as government investment in education is up there, the onus is on these heads to also make sure they complement the efforts of government. Of course, the demands of our people are enormous, but government is taking its time gradually to meet the demands of these people, so they'll be able to have a good way. We are far better than this.
Send the capitation.
And so-called that desperate John Mama.
I've been practicing for a very long time.
Is there what?
I've seen MPP, NDC, MPP, NDC. Schools under trees have existed in all those governments.
You've seen competence.
You were interviewed the education minister. You should have spoken.
You've seen reckless.
You were there in his ministry. He walked you through.
You've seen competent. You've seen
reckless. This is a government that
teachers
who have worked for 4 years. They pay them 3 months arrears.
You've seen competence.
3 months.
You've seen
Jenano Pokwajima and John Mama. They could pay 3 months out of 4 years. Accumulated salary. Is that the government we're talking about? 4 years salary, you go and pay 3 months. And you call yourself what?
Negligent.
This is legend of incompetence. John Mama.
Please, that's what you.
Please don't talk about John Mama here. You all teachers don't get 3 months out of 4 years.
Sorry.
Oh, please. Don't go there.
Sagbon, king of the case of Sankana traditional area in the Upper West region. And then also former Deputy Minister of Transport, Daniel Nikwate Titus Glover, former Member of Parliament for Tema, is now Chief Executive of VACO. Congratulations on your new position. We're taking a break. When we come back, we'll have more. We have a conversation on glaucoma. It's a predicament that affects a lot of it. Please sit down for me. Okay. So please make sure you stick and stay with us. We have this conversation on glaucoma. We have an ophthalmologist who will be coming into the studio, and then we'll interact. What we need to do to make sure that we prevent that, and then going forward, how to ensure that we have good eyesight. Stick and stay. We'll be right back.